Welcome to the broadcast. Thank you so much for keeping it here on Citizen TV. We are well into the second hour of Citizen Extra. My name is Wahiga Mwaura, and as we mentioned earlier, we're now turning our attention to the National Assembly, where members of Parliament have caused quite a stir by protesting the Sarah Serem proposed pay cuts. Some have backtracked on their complaints once they realized that, of course, the mood of the public, this did not augur well with the public, and hopefully shortly we'll be crossing over to Uasin Gishu, Kisumu County, and even Mombasa, just to get the views of Kenyans on what's been happening over the last 2 days, even the back and forth about Sarah Serem's proposed pay cuts, and also even as we know that Parliament has been gazetted, and of course the first sitting is expected to take place next week, what is expected to happen in regards to that. Let me introduce my guest in studio now. I'll start with the far right, where we have John Kiarie, Member of Parliament-elect, Dagoretti South. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Wahiga, and thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here today. And I'm also glad to have next to him Cynthia Mutere, governance expert. Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And in addition, we have Dr. Njogu Barua, former Member of Parliament, Kishogo. Welcome to the broadcast as well.
Thanks for having me as well.
Great. In fact, I've been corrected. I should actually call you outgoing. I believe that.
I'm already out.
You're already out?
Yes,
okay.
I am.
Great. Great.
Former.
And former.
Yes, yes.
Indeed. Let's talk about the uproar that's been happening over the last 2 days or so. And I'll start with you, Daktari. Because you've sat in that seat, you know how it feels to sit there, you know the challenges, but you also know what Sarah Serem is trying to achieve as well. Your take on a debate that has dominated the media for the last 2 days or so on Sarah Serem's proposed pay cuts.
Thank you, Wahiga, and thanks for giving me this first opportunity. And I'll share a little bit of my experience as a Member of Parliament for 5 years. And first, and start by saying that this is a debate that has been going on. What I gather is that the problem emanates from Sarah Serem fixing the salary at 621,000 per month as a fixed salary per month for the next 5 years. I want to say that the 11th Parliament, when you went in there, the same was a fixed salary for all of us. But we had a provision for annual increments. And that's how the money...
What percentage?
I don't know, but I don't remember, but it's about 40,000 per month per year.
I know in the Akiwumi report there had been a 5%.
It's something like that.
Okay.
And that is why the salary went up to 710 by the time we left that place. The other issue is that the debate also, what was more serious, was not really on salaries during our time. It was the mileage. Because in as far as people from the neighboring constituencies in Nairobi, for example, up to end of Murang'a, those guys were not getting marriage because it's like they were seeing that they are very near home.
Very near Nairobi.
They are Nairobi,
okay. And
so they were getting zero. At the same time, somebody in Lamu, Turkana, and Mandera used to get up to 2 million shillings tax-free money as marriage allowances. The issue which was there was like, well, yeah, we cannot criminalize anybody for benefiting from what is in the provisions because you didn't create the provisions. But the issue is, if you look at Kenya, we have infrastructure, we have airports. I've been going to Mombasa for committee reports, and I did see the speaker telling me to drive to Mombasa or take a bus. I used to take a flight to Mombasa, and the flight cost 20,000 shillings. So why should an MP who is Mombasa based be forced to use the plane to Mombasa? Then you count mileage from the point of departure, that's from the airport. Because it doesn't make sense for me to drive to Mombasa. It's too expensive for the country. The other issue on the debate of saying we don't want our salary touched. This comes from Ladoni Mushomba and Wanga.
Yes.
I want to say these are two people arguing from different points of view. Gladys Wanga is a second-term termer. And Gladys Wanga is a member of the Parliamentary Service Commission. So, the way I gather myself...
Although to Kenyans feel that they were both speaking from the same...
I want to clarify now.
Go ahead.
My interpretation is...
Yes.
There is going to be a campaign when Kina Kiarie are sworn in on to say these committees and commissions. And I think Wanga would like to retain her position as a commissioner. So he's just trying to...
So you're reading what, politics?
So he's trying to do politics
for
the constituency and the constituency's parliament. Ladoni Mushamba was bold enough to say, unfortunately, what is the mind of most MP elects.
Which she later on retracted. And said
she retracted because of the pressure. But I think she did not understand the politics of parliament.
Let me bring Cynthia into this. Cynthia, you have the privilege of sitting from afar and looking at everything that's happening. Your take on what has happened over the last 2 weeks, 2 days rather, and the proposed pay cut. Which everybody knew about.
Which everybody knew about, and maybe to begin from where Dr. Barua had just spoken to, was that The two members of parliament that have spoken, the MPs elect, of course they haven't been sworn in, have spoken what many of the members of parliament are feeling, and now they're the fall guys. They're the ones now who have to carry the cross. Mushomba has to carry that cross because she comes out and she speaks that way, and then when the president, who is her party leader, then castigates such a stand, then now she needs to backtrack, and so, well, she needs to just carry that cross and just plod on.
A very heavy cross.
Very heavy.
I heard you mention Akivumi report, because there's the Coker report and the Akivumi report, and that was reports that were submitted to, I think, the 10th Parliament, because these are commissions that had been established now to review the salaries and remuneration.
2010?
2010. That was for the 10th Parliament?
That should have been, because now we're getting into the 12th.
We're going into the 12th,
yes,
and because now that report now informed now what is now the Salaries and Remuneration Commission that is in our constitution, and have the sole mandate of now organizing how public servants and other servants are supposed to be paid and remunerated. And so it's important that we find a place where we are going to adhere to the rule of law and constitutionalism. One thing that is a challenge is that in Parliament, as you mentioned how Gladys Wanga is in the Parliamentary Service Commission, who seem to be operating by outdated laws, because I know what they have is the Parliamentary Pensions Act. They also have something that they had the Parliamentary Service Commission, CAPS 5. I think, if I'm not wrong. And those are all laws that have been outdated since the promulgation of the Constitution. The Constitution now supersedes all these acts that Parliament and these commissions and committees continue to operate by giving them now that teeth. And we need to actually now call out the Speaker to now tell
whoever will be,
or whoever, whoever will be Speaker, to, because I understand now he's the chairman of that remuneration committee, and he should tell his members that we cannot operate under these old acts, and that now we are operating under the new constitution, and the new constitution has given that full mandate to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. I know in January 2014, the spirited citizen Okiya Mutata actually took this issue to court, and there was a ruling by a 3-judge bench, I think Lenaola, Mumbi, and Korir, and they completely spoke to this issue, giving the SRC the sole mandate to actually organize the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, because I know what Parliament had done, the SRC had gazetted these notices, and what Parliament did then is the clerk of the Parliament actually wrote to SRC telling them that we're not going to be abiding by this, we're not going to be honoring these pledges, and so thereby just nullifying that. And so there was a court order, there has been no appeal for that order, and therefore I think that's time.
So you feel that the MPs do not have very many options when Parliament sits. Let's bring in one who will be seated in Parliament, of course, when the first sitting happens next week. John Kiarie, many thanks indeed for being here with us. You tweeted in support of the proposed pay cuts. In fact, we have some of those tweets as well. I don't know if we can run them now. Okay, we'll take a look at them immediately after this. But of course, you tweeted, you said you support the proposed pay cut. And yesterday we hosted some legislators and we asked them how come, on one hand, some legislators are opposing, but a lot of first-timers are saying, no, we are okay with the proposed pay cuts. And my question is there something former legislators or incumbent legislators may know that you, New Breed, that's you, Muhammad Ali, and among others, may not know or understand? Because all of you seem to be speaking from the same tone.
Well, I wouldn't be able to speak for anyone else. I'll say that this is my third attempt at the Dagoretti seat.
Yes.
And even from the very first attempt, which was 2007, I've been very clear on my stand about the remuneration of members of Parliament. And the discussion that needs to be held now, because that's my personal stand, the discussion that needs to be held now is on two fronts. The one front is on who has the mandate to regulate and rationalize the MPs' pays. And generally, we all agree that SRC as a commission has been given the mandate to rationalize all public officers and public servants' remuneration. The next discussion that needs to be held is about why is it that members of Parliament feel that there is some injustice in the slashing of their salaries, And we all know what arguments have been forwarded. The arguments are that we have made our legislators go beyond their mandate of legislation, their mandate of development, and their mandate of representation, and made them into walking ATMs.
Who is we here?
As Kenyans. It's a general discussion that we need to have as a country. That when you make Mheshimiwa Varua a walking ATM in his constituency, you are actually impoverishing this individual. So beyond just the pay cuts, we want to have any stakeholder that has a stake in this as a country, up to and including media, Wahiga, to now take the discussion beyond cutting the MP's salary to now having a values discussion. And the values discussion will now go into the areas of why is it that we expect the Member of Parliament to be the biggest contributor at the Harambee? Why do we expect that every time a Member of Parliament or any other representative passes by your area, he has to leave something small? Now that discussion is what is making some of these Members of Parliament, and that brings in the variance where you're talking about the second termers, the discussion about these people feeling like there is an injustice because they know what they've been taking home. There's some Members of Parliament who have been taking home a negative.
In fact,
after they factor in everything.
We've actually gotten your tweet up there. You say, be assured that I'm not against the SRC salary rationalization and recommendations for members of National Assembly salaries. We had two other tweets as well. Two things that...
Mine is informed by one principle.
Okay.
The principle that I was among the people who are agitating for the new constitution in 2010.
Yes.
I worked very hard in the Goretti constituency to make sure that we pass the constitution.
Okay.
And the SRC is embedded as a commission in this new constitution. So if I could agree with the independent body called IEBC, declaring me as a Member of Parliament,
why
I
counter
should also
the
be
SRC?
able to agree with SRC, which is a commission that has been, it's a body formed in our constitution to do this work.
I want to throw a challenge to you before I come to Dr. Barua. You've said that Kenyans have had an expectation in the past of their members of National Assembly MPs. There are certain expectations they expect of them whenever they visit their constituencies. I know you've said that it's time to have a national discussion about the role of MPs. But some would also feel that MPs themselves have a blame in all this, that they have chosen to associate with CDF for a long time, longer than they should have, and that's an MP seen as a bringer of checks or of money whenever that happens, whereas they could have chosen to separate themselves from that. But also in addition, a lot of Kenyans, because this discussion began about 2 days ago, have felt that we don't want you to come and give us money. We now want you, there's a new crop of Kenyans who are saying, now we want you to play your role, which is making laws, keeping in check the bodies that you need to keep in check as well. So a challenge is now being thrown out to Members of Parliament. How do you respond to that?
Well, that challenge is, you can feel it. You can feel the challenge. And it didn't start when this crop of leaders was elected. You saw what happened even with the party primaries, where Kenyans had decided who they wanted to represent them, regardless of how much money was being thrown at them. And that in itself is a challenge to some of the Members of Parliament who are elected not because of their financial might, but because some people wanted a change and they wanted them to represent them in Bunge. Now about the CDF, remember even the CDF was rationalized, and Mheshimiwa Varua is here.
That's right.
And he will tell you what changes were made and these are now embedded in law, transforming CDF from what was traditionally CDF to the national government CDF, so that it is sensitive to the issue of the 2010 constitution of devolution. And now what we are calling the NGCDF has a mandate to just carry out matters and functions that are associated with the national government, which were not duplicated by the county devolved functions. And more importantly, the Member of Parliament took a lesser role in overseeing and managing the CDF.
That's correct.
To an extent that even today, as a Member of Parliament elect in the Goretti South, I'm not able to walk into my CDF and fire the fund manager that I found there. I'm not able to walk in there and fire and fires the committee, the CDF committee that I found in my constituency. Because these people, they have a security of tenure. They're secured. So the member of parliament actually doesn't take the role that we traditionally knew the MPs to take as patrons of CDF. You now become an ex-officio to your CDF.
Now you need to make that a reality for your constituents in terms of understanding. And another issue was also what role are members of parliament playing in terms of civic education. I'll come back to you for that. Do we have those graphics now and those tweets as well? Okay, hopefully we'll come back to them. We have graphics comparing a ratio of how leaders are paid from different countries vis-a-vis the GDP of their countries. This was a study that was done in 2010, and we'll be able to bring that up shortly. Dr. Barua, let me come back to you as well. A proposal, a controversial one that, and it's been discussed across the world, because it's not just in Kenya where legislator salaries are a big issue. It's an issue in Europe, in some countries as well. Should MP salaries be linked to average salaries in a particular country?
That's a very good question, but to continue from where I left and where KJ has left, is that the member of parliament you do elect is not is actually a different person from the one you should elect, because from experience and from the law, the member of parliament should do oversight, registration, and representation. And that is something which one can do with a very small salary, because you are just an average member of the community. But from experience is that when you go to the constituencies, the member of parliament, in fact, is the most recognized leader among the communities. The issues of MCAs, there's still that notion that MC is the old councillor who would not have money. It has not come to the realization of Kenyans that MCAs now are actually honorable members who actually control the budget of the counties. When you go to governors, their role has not really trickled down to the Mwananchi and the senator and so forth.
Although we are seeing that changing.
We are seeing now it's changing. But from 63 up to now, people have been used to Mheshimiwa MP. So all the burdens of the constituency are actually going to Mheshimiwa. In other words, I want to say this. The common man, common woman, expects, if you get a sick child, the MP chips in. If you get Harambe for secondary school, high school, university, the MP chips in. So what is happening in an institution like this is that members of parliament are becoming refugees in their own area.
But the issue that Kenyans have...
Let me finish. I'm coming to that.
Okay.
They are becoming refugees in their own communities. Because even if you go to a contribution, you make like 2,000, 5,000, 10,000.
Yes.
The community waiting outside also expect to do something. It's a reality. It's not what should happen.
So the thing is,
if you make your campaign or your leadership about money, it will not matter how much you're given.
Okay.
Even if you are given 10 million per month,
you exhaust it in days,
in hours. But there must be a lot of civic education for the community to know that the MP we elect is to be presented at the national level and make laws that will help us get a better future. Finally, I would like to say that the percentage cut of salary, it was actually a presidential proposal. It was actually in parliament. I was sitting there. And the president said that everybody must sacrifice so that you can be able to meet the demands, the social demands. And he shocked us by saying that 2% of Kenyans are enjoying 57% of the GDP. And that is where the
less than, what, 70,000 people earn over 100,000?
Yeah.
In a country that's over 40 million
40
people.
million, yeah. So that's 2%, which is earning of 57% of the national wealth. It's a very sad situation. So for the MPs to get a salary cut is just a part of the contribution, which they have to bear. Others must be, the president accepted the salary cut, the deputy president, so you must follow suit and move from the president all the way to the lowest earning person, so that you can be able to meet our social demands that makes us grow. Finally, I would like to say that why the MPs are suffering, and when I hear somebody has been elected like KG,
yes,
I just start sympathizing with him because I know what's ahead of him. Luckily, he's my friend. I really have to support him.
Before you give your final point, I still have a question.
Yes.
The legislators that are going to be sworn in next week,
yes,
especially those who are new, they knew that this was happening. Of course, legislators are informed people. They watch TV, they read, many are lawyers and from other careers as well, professionals. Why did they still choose to vie, and yet they knew that these changes are coming? And do they have any excuses right now?
I can answer it in two ways. first and foremost, for some, like Kerry is telling us, this is the third term. So he has been on it for 10 years. I get 15 years. So people don't make a decision to run today and they run tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a decision people make maybe 10 years, 5 years before the actual day of voting. So in terms of psychological, mental and financial investment, it spans over a long time period. The other thing is, some people go there because of a calling to serve.
Some.
But when you get there, when you get there,
yes.
2 days experience is able to make you realize that the resources at your disposal are not adequate to make the change that you intend to change. So somebody now becomes at catch-22. What do? Let me tell you this.
Dr. Baru, I'm not sure I fully agree with you.
No, let me tell you this.
Point,
I'm saying this. Like even now, I'm a retired member of parliament.
That's right.
I still get a lot of requests to help people. Imagine the person who is sitting. Finally, I wanted to say this. Where the MPs and other leaders are getting this type of problem is because a big percentage of this kind of Kenyans live below human dignity. If there is a nation,
we elevated
everybody's standard of living, so that you can be, each one of us can be able to be living at $1.5 per day, then we shall stop fighting for basic needs.
Let me stop you there, Dr. Barua. Cynthia, let me come in on this and help us visualize what the next few weeks will look like for the National Assembly. If they attempt to broach this topic during their sittings, you've seen the reaction from Kenyans already. Kenyans are just waiting for the start. What options do members of parliament have?
The old ones will probably want to baptize the new ones into what they did in 2013, 2014, because then there was a huge outcry from the public, but they still pursued their agenda. And so that's something that's going to be a little bit tricky. Of course, the people will be upset with them, but you can't recall them until after 2.5 years. And I didn't see anyone being recalled in the last session of parliament, so it's going to be difficult to do that. But then just to see how Kenyans do things in a certain way and expect now to get different results, there's the investment. 15 years to get into parliament. I've done it also a couple of years, still haven't got there, we'll get there. But you usually invest in social activities, taking care of social stuff. You're always contributing to funerals. Even as a candidate, you're doing all these social services activities, and then once you get there, you want to stop doing that. They're expecting more from you because now they know you have a 1 million shilling salary. And how are you now supposed to tell them, oh, that's not my job. My job is really to oversight and to legislate and to really represent you. So what are your needs? So there needs to be that intersection between now legislating, oversighting and representation and that social services. And I think that's the spirit of the new constitution when we introduce devolution to bring these services closer to the people. Now the work of now the legislators will now have to be now not debating and seeing how their salaries are going to be increased, decreased, or how they can negotiate with SRC, but to see how these social services can be really introduced in this country. I know in the campaign manifestos, they were being done piecemeals, like introduction of health services for women, maternal health and stuff, and you're doing little piecemeal things. Maybe we just need the legislators to just look at this whole thing in a holistic kind of manner, just see how you can put the CDF with the NHIF with free primary education and say this is the social
focus
services
of people off their legislators.
and say this is what this is available to a Kenyan citizen as per our constitution, and this is now you release now us as legislators to now do. No, I mean I'm speaking now what Kiari should be doing, but he goes in because he did say that conversation will be about now negotiating their salaries and now how to not just put emphasis on salaries, but the emphasis really should be on social amenities and social services. How do we do that? How do we get these services closer to the people? Of course it's come through devolution, but really make deliverables where they're not looking at the member of parliament to do that.
Okay. John, I'm coming to you shortly. I believe we have some of those graphics ready now. Maybe we start with the other two tweets first. From different lawmakers who had gone on social media to give their views about the proposed pay cuts. Even as Kenyans just, really went on to talk about it, the hashtag MPs pay, trending I think for almost the last day and a half. Are those tweets ready now? Okay, let's take a look at the first one on the screen. There we go. Jaguar Kenya, real Jaguar Kenya. Just to categorically state, I'm not in support of a pay rise. Count me out. Starehe constituency, first-time lawmaker there, legislator. You know him, of course, from other sectors like music and so forth. And we have another one there. Let's take a look at this one. Mohammed Ali, Mohaji Chopevu. I, Mohammed Ali, do not support any move to increase my salary and that of my fellow elected members. Those are the ones that I could get. If there are others, of course, you can also let me know about them. Hopefully we can play them later on. We also have a chart that was done, studies linked, by the IMF, the Economist, and a few other bodies as well. A comparison, and this was done in 2010, so it's a couple of years back, but nevertheless, it gives us an idea of where Kenya was in comparison to what leaders earn vis-a-vis the GDP of the country. And you'll be surprised where Kenya stood. That was back in 2010 in all this. That should be coming up on your screen shortly. There we go. This is actually 6 to 10. So that's New Zealand, France, USA, Japan, and Germany. Germany being at the very bottom. Now, just to let me make this clear for you. This is not an indication of how much leaders earn, but rather a ratio of how much they earn vis-a-vis their GDP. So you might find, for example, that Germany's leader, who is now, so Germany being at the bottom means it's the most cost-effective economy in terms of how they are paying their leaders vis-a-vis the GDP. Let's take a look at the other one now, which was the top 5, and you will see where Kenya stands in all this. That should be up on your screen shortly. Again, not an indication of exactly how much leaders earn, but more of a comparison. Kenya at number 1. This was back in 2010. Again, we don't have current figures. Kenya, Singapore, Indonesia, South Africa, and Hong Kong. So when you compare Kenya's economy with how much Kenyan leaders were earning, and you calculate that, Kenya stood top compared to Singapore, Indonesia, South Africa, Hong Kong. Again, the only 2 African countries that are in the top 10 is Kenya and South Africa. These were shocking statistics, caused quite an uproar back then. I don't know what the situation is right now. John Kiarie, hopefully someone will do a study and update us. But I can give you a chance now to respond to a bit of what you've seen. Go ahead.
Well, when these studies were being done, some of us were actually not in Bunge. And this is where some of us will be judged almost very harshly. I remember for 12 years I was a journalist, and I had
actually you've seen the other side as well.
Yes, and I was one of the biggest critics of how the MPs were getting together to do or to make their pay rises. Now, the other discussion I think that we need to introduce is why Kenya is showing up at the top there.
At least back in 2010.
Yeah, back in 2010. So I can imagine now it's even worse with the bigger parliament. And now the parliament is way bigger than what it was before the new constitution, with the introduction of senators into parliament, introduction of 47 county MPs who are representing the women in Bunge. Hence,
and we have not yet achieved the gender rule,
and we haven't that we were supposed to. The two-thirds gender, meaning that we are not being very creative in how we are forming our representation. And that brings me to the discussion that I wanted to introduce. The discussion about, is the Kenyan public overrepresented? Do we have too many people representing us in the different bodies that are out there? Now, when you think about it, the Kenyan citizen at home has 3 executive offices that are making executive decisions for them. You have the president, you have the deputy governor, the governor and their deputy. Those are 3 offices. You've got now the rest of the offices making laws for them, legislating. So you've got a member of county assembly, you've got a member of parliament, you've got a member of senate.
Yes.
And this goes to the discussion of whether Kenya is overrepresented. And you remember, it must have been, I think, 2 years before this election, when a movement came up and they were saying, Punguza Mzigo, Punda amechoka.
Hashtag.
And you remember how that was taken by Kenyans.
Yes.
So it leaves some of us who are getting into Bunge in the situation that Mheshimiwa Varua is saying, that we are in a catch-22 situation. The Kenyan is not forgetting as fast as people used to say the Kenyan is forgetting. So it is not going to be easy, Cynthia, for some of us to be baptized into what you're saying the previous Bunge did, because we're cognizant of what it took to get some of the people that we got out of Bunge, how we went about it. And one
so
of
we don't expect you to change your tone or tune.
Well,
once
that's not
you get
the intention. We don't even intend to do that. We know it is going to be a hard battle.
Okay.
It's going to be a big fight. Some of us, as I said, have fought it for years. So we are hoping that we will be consistent even as we go in. But think about it. This member of parliament is still going to have to carry the burden. I'm hearing you throwing it back at members of parliament of going back to the village and doing the civic education of telling the people that I am not a walking ATM. I am actually the person you elected to go and represent you in Bunge and to go and legislate.
It's funny you said that. I want to read an SMS and allow you to continue. And Dr. Barua also, I need you to weigh in on this because they're responding to something you said. Mwenda from Meru is asking, or is saying rather, it's not only members of parliament who are burdened by harambes, mazishis, church functions, contributions. People earning less than 50,000 are also called upon to contribute at such forums. So I guess they're asking, why do members of parliament feel that they are so special, that they are the only ones who should be compensated greatly because of obligations, while every Kenyan, even media, even journalists, you know, we are called for all manner of harambes, and you don't see
Cynthia alluded to it. Cynthia alluded to it,
because
but
the
also,
way that you carry out your campaign.
but also,
okay, let Cynthia say something. Then
jump in.
Yes, jump in. Go ahead.
Basically, you don't. It's just a Kenyan habit, like how you have Christmas and then there's January, you have to pay school fees. It's like we've gone through this campaign. It was all hunky dory. Now we have to come to the reality of actually serving the public with these pay cuts. It's actually a pay cut, and I know there are two arguments here: whether we should take pay cuts as public officers, as proposed by the SRC, or should now someone go to court and now instigate labor laws that really justify people why they should not be doing pay cuts but getting pay increase. So the debate is not the increase. It's like some of them are saying, if you're a two-term member of parliament, then we need a percentage higher than the first timers, you know. So for every consecutive term that you come in, then you're liable to a benefit or percentage of increase other than the first timers. And that argument really is really flawed right from the onset of really just even defending yourselves for having that kind of pay. But then it's something that's within our culture. Maybe it's something that someone needs to look at, is that coat of arms where there's that word harambe that is just governing this nation, really, because it's just harambe for everyone. And you say journalists, anyone who's employed is expected to give to a harambe somewhere, and there's that harambe. What we need to put on that coat of arms is peace, love and unity. Maybe that would be our driving force or something like that, you know. But then it is that harambe spirit where now the person who's paid highest then is expected to give more, much more.
To whom much is given, much is expected.
And so SRC, even in negotiating, they have proposed the 35% cut. Why should it be 35? Maybe they should do 20%, or work the legislators through, maybe 5%, 10%. To 35%.
I think they had a target in mind when they, what they wanted to save per year.
Negotiation. It's really negotiating to say, can we do 35% cut? No, do 10%. No, okay, we'll keep it at 20%.
Kenyans don't want.
But
John, come in.
What I was saying is, when that says that everyone is called upon to go to a harambe, but the burden is heavier on elected leaders. When you think about it, you remember a case where the Nyeri County MP, the Nyeri Women Rep, Mheshimiwa Nyokavi, went to a harambe and donated 2,000 shillings. And in all honesty, maybe that's all she had. You remember the backlash she got. Actually, the only other time we're seeing a backlash on a leader concerning money is now the Mheshimiwa Mugadhoni wa Mushoba incident. Yes. After that, that's how big it was. Because everyone is expecting that you are a Mheshimiwa, you should show up at a harambe and outdo everyone else who is there. Otherwise, our vote is not guaranteed. We might not elect you because you're not helping us as we want you to help us. But what I was saying is, Cynthia has alluded to the fact that what is informing these pay cuts, as was said by Heche, the president, in his address to Bunge on his State of the Nation address, was the fact that this is not an end to itself. The reason why we are thinking about rationalizing these salaries is so that we can have a bit more going back to the public kitty so that we are able to give the services. So the thinking behind it is that we want to make it a bit easier for all Kenyans. It's almost like spreading the wealth. Let it go around.
Spreading the cake.
And we get the opportunity now with SRC, an opportunity that we did not have with the old constitution, where now it can be thrown to one body that is independent, that is not a member of parliament, to go and rationalize these salaries for everyone.
Okay.
So that now
and
we
that
can
didn't
have a
bring in
discussion.
any confidence, because with that argument, it was the recurrent expenditure. So you're looking only at the recurrent of now just the pays of people. What about this other recurrent expenditure that government actually
No, the recurrent.
I think you want this budget to go into development.
The recurrent expenditure
Dr.
stands out like a sore thumb. You know, the figures that Mheshimiwa Barua is giving us are real. That you cannot have 2% of Kenya's population earning 57% of what Kenyans are earning.
Yes,
so
GDP.
we've got to say that even recurrent expenditure in itself stands out as a sore thumb.
Okay.
The argument that taking it to development, and then it usually doesn't get there.
Hang on.
I think
Dr. Barua, go on.
one I would like my comments. I'm going to comment on 3 issues. One of them is the tweets, Mr. Mwenda's comment, and also the timing. First, I would like to congratulate Mwenda for that position.
Okay.
He's actually, if he's earning that money, 50,000 and below, he is contributing his own small.
Let me just repeat Mwenda's message in case someone has just joined us. Mwenda from Meru said it's not only members of parliament who are burdened by Harambee, Mazishi Church contributions. People earning less than 50,000 do the same. Basically,
exactly.
Everyone.
Exactly.
Oh,
but I think Mwenda is doing a good job by contributing to social, being a solution to social issues. But I want to tell him clearly, his constituency is too small. Maybe
he would beg to differ.
Okay, fine.
You cannot use that argument.
Okay, let me. I'm developing the conversation.
Okay.
But maybe it's too big for him. But I'm saying, a member of parliament, for example, like me, I was representing about 250,000 people. In every single day, I was not having less than 20 occasions to attend to. Those are cards which have been printed without my knowledge. I just get
daily for the 4.5
years
that you were in
office.
office.
Just get an SMS, or I get, in fact, even an SMS or a call. Mheshimiwa, I've got this Harambee tomorrow evening. So and so's child is going to university, or whatever it is. Can you come and help us? So you are obliged to respond to so many people. The other thing is, this conversation about the responsibilities and the roles of an MP must be opened up in this country. People must understand what the real role of the representative is. Because I have a lot of respect for everybody who was elected in 2017, including the one who hosted me. But I want to say, in terms of participation in lawmaking, I could not talk of better women or better MPs than one Florence Kajuju of Meru. You know how she was active contributing. And another one, Nyokabi of Nyeri, who gave the 2,000 bob. They did enormously well in parliament, even better than some of us men. Yet they were voted out. So this narrative is not a question that I want to tell Mr. KJ and the rest who are in parliament. You are not voted out because of your poor performance only. There are many other factors.
So it's not just a money thing.
It's not a money thing. It is not a money thing. It is not a participation issue. It could even be the establishment doesn't want you. And if the establishment doesn't give you backing, and I'm saying this without meeting my wants, you'll go home.
Dr. Barua, let me interrupt you briefly. Yes. Because I need to cross over to Uasin Gishu County, where John Wanyama is talking to residents of... No, actually, he's in Elgeyo Marakwet, I beg your pardon. And, okay, we'll find out exactly where he is, and he'll be able to tell us what residents there are thinking about this particular discussion. John Wanyama, back to you. Kindly give us the latest.
Thank you very much, Mwaura. And as we speak now, I'm at Kimumu Estate, Eldoret Town, Uasin Gishu County. Here, I'm just speaking with the residents to get their views on whether MPs should be given more money on their salaries or not. And here, Mwaura, most of people here, residents, they are very furious on why MPs should come out again before even they are sworn in to ask for more increment for their salaries. And they knew very well when they are going for the elections that their salary had been slashed. Without wasting time, Mwaura, let me just speak to a few of them just to give us a sneak peek of what they feel, what they think about salary increment. If I can start with you. Maoni yako ni yapi kuhusiana na mishahara ya wabunge kuongezwa?
Okay, maoni yangu ni kwamba mishahara ya wabunge isiongezwe kabisa. Nataka ni shukuru President of the Republic of Kenya. Vile alistan jana akasema hata kama hii mambo ya Supreme Court iende through, yeye hatatia kidole kwa hiyo story za kuongeza mshahara ya wabunge. Kwa kweli ukiangalia mwananchi ya chini, yeye ndio anaumia. Na ukiangalia hao wabunge wanataka kuongezewa pesa ya bure. Of course wakisema ati wanaenda mambo ya fundraising, hata pia sisi wananchi pia tunaenda mambo ya fundraising. So sioni maana yote ya hao watu wa kuongezewa pesa kwa. Okay, asante.
Thank you. Mamesonga hapa karibu tuanze maoni.
Mimi kwa maoni yangu wasiongezewe kabisa. Hakuna kazi wanafanya. Hakuna kweli. President akatae na katae, tumekataa. Asike mumu nao bila mstandi hapa. Hatutaki muzara yao ikatwe. Maoni yetu ni unaona sasa kama sisi mazolas. Ona tunaumia. Unaona vijana hapa, wazee. Ona hawana kazi. Ona na wako hapa. Wako hapa. Bananyanga hapa kemumu wakitafuta kazi. Sasa president angalie vijana kwanza. Akate mzara ndio tunaomba. Kama sisi watu wake wapate kidogo at least ati vijana ngali vijana wapate wa mama. Sisi ni mazolas. Hatuna kazi. Unaona zuna vijana tukiangalia vile wanaangalia. Wamaliza university, walimaliza form 4, wamaliza wapi colleges, hawana kazi. Muzara tumesema no, president vile amesema akate hivyo. Hiyo ndio maoni yangu nimesema leo hii. Na hiyo ni leo tarehe 25.
Pengine mzee maoni yako acha.
Hata mimi maoni yangu nayo pia wasiongezewe mshahara. Wapata ile kidogo bado.
Wengine wanasema nyinyi ndio mnafanya, wanajaribu kuitisha pesa nyingi, nyinyi wanakuja kwa rambe zenu, wanakuja nyinyi ndio mnawaomba pesa, wanafanya maisha yawe magumu kwao.
Hapana, haiwezekani namna hiyo. Wapata ile kidogo. Hata sisi tunaendanga kwa rambe na ile yetu kidogo bado pia.
Pengine jamaa usonge hapa, jamaa wangu wa mwisho tu tuzungumze nawe.
Ndugu yangu, huyo mheshimiwa si ndio tumeandika yeye kazi. Tumeandika yeye kazi, aenda tusaidie huko juu. Hata mimi mwenyewe mimi nafanya kazi ya mikono hapa, nachenga nyumba, nafanya kazi gani? Na mimi nina mchango. Kwa nini hata yeye sikuje? Na mimi nimeandika yeye kazi. Sisi hata watu waongezee mshahara kama mimi sasa kama mtu wa mchengo nakula shilingi 300 kwa siku. Na yeye anakula 10,000 kwa siku. Na mimi bado naenda mchango kama yeye. Yeye akuje.
Asante. Mwaura, without wasting time, we don't have much time. As you've heard from residents here in Kimumu Estate, Uasin Gishu County, they are saying that no and no, as the president sworn yesterday that he's not going to allow this to be happening if he will be allowed by the court to continue. Residents are also backing him, saying that he should stand firm and ensure that no even a single shilling is added to MP's salary. From Uasin Gishu County, Mwaura, over to you, studio.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, John Wanyama. Clearly, one can see that there is no divergence of opinion from residents of Uasin Gishu Eldoret town on this particular matter. My time is almost up, unfortunately. I'll just give my panelists here literally 30 seconds each just to give a final comment, even as we wind up this part of the broadcast. I'll start with you, John Kiarie. Final reaction or comment?
Well, my stand is clear. I already made it clear even before I got elected. And even after getting elected, I've made my stand very clear that I am in support of the rationalization and the recommendations made by the SRC, and that's the stand that I'm going to take to Bunge.
Okay. Thank you, Cynthia.
The argument is not pay rise, but pay cut. Of course,
yes.
SRC has already made that rationalization, and we should give it that power to do that for us. And if now they're making savings with pay cuts, and these monies now are going to be now channeled into other areas, into development that we're seeing now in Uasin Gishu, it nearly needs to go into the counties in devolution. If it goes into devolution, then we want to see transparency, accountability, that these monies that have been saved from
we want
people's
to follow that money trail.
Yes, and corruption that was such a big issue in the campaign and in the last regime. We want to see that the president leaves a legacy that he is going to make the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission at least work by prodding them. I know it's an independent institution, but at least let them wake up and make sure that money saved elsewhere to come and bring development to the people is actually channeled into those areas, and that we do see the impact of these monies in our lives.
Thank you so much. Dr. Barua, briefly, please.
I want to say that I support the President initiative and the President himself. I support the recommendations by the SRC, but I also want to say that Parliament must be respected and should be respected, and for it to be respected, it has to respect other institutions. I think I find it in bad taste for parliamentarians, instead of debating the issues in the House, they have gone to press conferences to discuss public issues. So they should have actually gotten a more organized way, even if they had an issue, to work together and tell the public why they feel the way they feel. Finally, in terms of tweets, you have received 3 tweets from KRA, from Moha, and from Jaguar. I want to tell these young members of Parliament that Parliament is about collective efforts. Let them, the individual proposals might look selfish, and I don't know what people interpret.
Don't open a can of worms here. I'm winding up.
So what I'm saying is that let them know that what's going to save their image is not the individual positions, but the general, visionary, and collective position.
Well, we're not sworn yet, and when we go to the floor of the House, you're going to see that there is actually a critical mass that stands with this voice. Currently, we are still private members and private citizens, and that's why you're seeing individuals making their individual stands. It's these individual stands that are going to be collated and become a collective.
John Kerry, we will be watching you and all the legislators when the first sitting happens next week Thursday. That's how we wrap up this part of the program. Again, I wish I had more time, but we need to get into other matters as well. There have been fears that Kenya could lose out on hosting the 2018 CHAN tournament. This is a tournament where local-based players from African countries gather to participate in. Up next, we'll be hosting FKF President Nick Mwendwa to talk about how near or how far are we in terms of hosting that tournament, because we have the rights. But there have been worries that that right to host could be taken away from us. We'll be right back after this short break. But for now, before we take a break, let's cross over to the Supreme Court, where Sam Gituku is on standby. All eyes on the Supreme Court, even as we know that a lot of filing has been taking place. The deadline by which the respondents, that is the IEBC, the President, was supposed to take now their responses to NASA's petition was yesterday. Let's now get an update from Sam Gituku. Sam, over to you. What's the latest? What can you tell us so far?
Well, good morning, Wahiga. Yes, there is a deadline that is approaching in about 1 hour 34 minutes. That is for the petitioner, who is the National Super Alliance, that is Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka. They are supposed to be filing their written submissions before the Supreme Court registry. That is at 1 o'clock. But we have been speaking to some of the officials of the registry, and they tell us that so far nothing has been filed, indicating that the National Super Alliance has just about, as I said, 1 hour 34 minutes to do so. And this is important because it is a summary. It gives a summary of what they will be saying when the court sits to hear and listen to this particular petition. And so with that kind of tight timeline, it's something that they need to be doing in the next few minutes, because there are also other matters that need to be filed by that 1 o'clock. That is to do with people who want to be enjoined in this matter as friends of the court. They need to have done that by 1 o'clock. Of course, you remember that it has been speculated that the Attorney General, Professor Githu Muigai, will be applying to be a friend of the court, but so far what he understands from the Supreme Court officials, or rather Supreme Court registry officials, is that has not yet happened. And so far there's only one person who has applied to be a friend of the court, and that is the ICT authority. They want to be enjoined in the matter so they can advise on particularly the insinuations, the allegations that the electronic system that was used by the Electoral Commission was somehow flawed. So they'll be advising on what they think should be the understanding of the court. But then also there are other persons who want to be enjoined in the matter. For instance, the former presidential candidate, Ekuru Okot of the Third Way Alliance, has already applied to be enjoined as an interested party. And then also the independent presidential candidate, Michael Wainaina, Professor Michael Wainaina, has already applied to be enjoined as an interested party. But for him, he is saying that the election was free and fair. For Ekuru Okot, his position is that the election was flawed in some instances. So so far 3 persons have requested to be enjoined in what is called the interlocutory applications. We're expecting more to be done in the next 1 hour, maybe 32 minutes now, so that they can also be considered whether they should be enjoined in the particular matter. But then again, there's another deadline which is at about 7 o'clock this evening. That is for the respondents in this particular case, talking about the Electoral Commission, Wafula Chebukati as the returning officer of the presidential election, and also the Electoral Commission itself, IEBC, and the Jubilee Party, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto. They should be filing their written submissions in this particular matter by 7 o'clock. And then after that, then the National Super Alliance, should they feel that they want to respond or either file a rejoinder to what will have been filed by the opponents in this particular matter, they have until tomorrow at 9 o'clock to do so, so that that can be considered on whether they can proceed on to have the hearing. But essentially, then after that, they will have closed all the filings. That is by 9 a.m. tomorrow, so that the pre-trial conference can kick off later in the evening tomorrow. So what we are doing here, Wahiga, is that we are waiting to see who files files what submissions, or rather who files what requests to be enjoined in this particular matter. Wahiga?
Well, thank you, Sam Gituku, for helping us to understand some of these timelines. Day 7 of this process, bearing in mind the verdict by the Supreme Court will need to be known by the 1st of September. That is next week, Friday. Thank you for that update, Sam. We'll come back to you when you have more updates. Time now for a short break. When we come back, we'll be talking matters football, CHAN 2018, and I'll be joined by FKF President Nick Mwendwa.